David says, and then I will teach rebels how to live. Teach rebels your way. And so I'm going to invite two amazing individuals, a great couple, to the platform, Jason and Amber Redoutey. They are teachers of people in this what we've been talking about. And so let's give them a hand as they're here. And I realize talking about these kinds of things in church is, number one, is not normal. And number two, we've all are broken in some way. And so there's no shame, no guilt. And I want you to feel that. No shame, no guilt in this regard. This is a real story in the Bible, which I think God left on record so that we can learn from. And so thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing and vulnerable. And so you hear this story. We've heard it 100 times over and over again. But there's a unique intersection of this story with your life. And what is that?
Yeah, as David's secrets and silence were talked about, I lived most of my life with a lot of secrets from really, really early on. Starting with some sexual abuse that I locked away in a lockbox and thought I would never think about or deal with or talk about. That brokenness morphed into some just sexual dysfunction, and I was a womanizer in my teens and 20s and turned that into a really serious porn addiction, and thought that maybe the solution would be to find a wonderful woman and get married, hoping that was the fix. But it wasn't, because it didn't really address the brokenness that had existed in me in a long time. So the cover-ups, the lying, the double life, the confusion, the misdirection, the sweeping under the rug was just a way of life for 20 years for me. And at some point, about 5 years into my marriage, lying and hiding and addiction and abortion and adultery were all part of my secrets. I came to a point where I didn't want to live like that anymore. And it really, the genesis of turning the corner was someone gave me hope. A guy named Tim Spalding sat on this stage and told his story about being abused as a boy, and I said, that's like me. And how he turned that brokenness into some unhealthy sexuality, some unhealthy addictions and pornography. And I said, that's me. We don't talk about this at church. We don't say the pornography word. But also how he had found freedom, how he had walked out of that and found forgiveness and grace, and it changed his life. And I sat there with all those secrets thinking, oh my gosh, number one, that's me. But number two, it was the first glimmer of hope, because I thought I was broken beyond belief. I mean, I just thought I was so uniquely screwed up and I had gone too far. There was no redemption for me. So that was the first glimmer of hope. And then I found myself at a men's retreat called Hearts Alive and Free, where I was spoken into by other men and by God saying, hey, you think the secret is the secret, but the double top secret is that you have a new identity and you have a new heart that you can live out of. And it was the first time that I had begun to believe it, even though I had been a Christian since I was a little kid and knew a lot of truth, had a lot of foundation of truth from my family, but just could not reconcile what I said I believed about God and his love and his forgiveness and how I live my life. I couldn't reconcile those things.
So you're at Hearts Alive and Free, and you are broken in this moment, and you know you have to go home and you have to share this. Now again, you in that moment you said, I have to share this with my wife, have to share all of the brokenness and ugliness with her coming home. So tell me what the ride home was like from coming from Hearts Alive and Free until you got to the front door, and what was that like? And then we'll talk a little bit about when you walked through the front door.
Yeah, I had been asking for God for a mentor, someone that would help me in this journey, someone who knew something about this sexual brokenness and could kind of walk with me out of it. And so there was about a 2.5-hour car ride with him where I still, no one knew anything yet. I was still just soaking in information. We got to the point where, like, a commuter lot where we split off cars, and he said to me with tears in his eyes, I can't tell you what to do, but I wish I could get back to 15 years that I lived in secrecy and in hidden sin, that I missed out on raising my kids with a full heart, loving my wife with a full heart, having a real marriage. And I decided at that moment, like, I'm going to do it. And my heart was beating out of my chest the whole way home, and I was wrestling with God of, how much to tell, what do I hold back? Does she really need to know that? And eventually, it all came. I puked it out eventually.
Okay, metaphorically. So you walk in and you kind of metaphorically put your finger down your throat and you puke it out. And okay, so Amber, you don't have a raincoat on. You don't have anything to protect you from what he's about to share. Your first response when he shares this is what?
Yeah. So I gotta just say that God did prepare my heart for it, and it came in different truckloads, but he got the courage to dump a lot of it out that first afternoon. And I remember his car pulling up, and I was so excited to hear what God had done, because while he was away, I knew God was doing something. I couldn't pinpoint what it was, but I knew God was up to something, and so I was excited to hear. And while he was gone, God gave me just compassion for him and the ability to see him through God's eyes. And so honestly, I know God prepared my heart for that initial puking, as you would say, and that he gave me the grace to listen and receive. Now, the journey after that was not easy, and the recovery of all that and other things, that when he finally got the courage to tell me more things, it was a hard journey.
Yeah. So Jason, you when we were at lunch a number of weeks ago, way before we knew that we were going to be sitting here, you shared something that was counterintuitive, which it stuck with me, because the natural response when there's adultery, when there's hidden secret sin, immediately the first thing is we got to save the marriage, and yet the counterintuitive thing was you told Amber, at least that initial, not to really save the marriage. Why did you tell her that during that time?
I had reached the point personally where the pain of staying the same, living the same life, was now greater than the pain of change or the pain of dealing with past or the consequences of what was going to happen. And I did it not to save our marriage, but to save my heart, my life. And I saw down the road of where my sin was taking me, already grieving where I had been, but even seeing where the path led to, and just being so scared and so convinced that this is the time, I have to bring this into the light, or I'm gonna be in prison, and it's gonna be even worse. So yeah, that point where I started to believe that I wanted to live a new way, live a new life, and bring it into the light. And really, I told her, kind of the initial invitation was, I've been running from pain and running from the darkness for my whole life. And I'm going to turn around and run into that darkness. Will you run with me? And I was going to do it either way, but I hoped that she was going to run with me.
Yeah. So the residual is the beginning part of the healing of your marriage, but you told her not to necessarily save the marriage. That's counterintuitive. Not to save the marriage, but really to save your heart. And as a result, she gets a heart that fights for the marriage. So you were prepared for her to leave, and so you were prepared for that. So the question is, Amber, why? Again, you may have shared it. Why did you stay? Which you had every justifiable reason to, when you hear that, to say, you know something, I have a reason to leave. So why did you stay?
Yeah, I know that I had a lot of reason to leave, and I struggled with that over time. And when he came home initially, I saw this broken man that I had never seen before. And he was inviting me to help save him, and my heart jumped at that. I wanted to fight this battle with him. And so that was part of my irreplaceable role in this life. I could see God was saying, if you're just here on earth for just this one person, you can go do this with him. And so my heart leaped at just fighting this fight with him, knowing that it would cause us both a lot of pain, but holding on to the hope that there would be great joy in the future. And one of the things also down the road that I felt God just reassuring me and showing me was that he was going to be there through it with me, and that he would never let me go. And it was more about my own personal journey with the Lord as well.
Yeah. So how have family and friends been important in these last 5 or 6 years of healing, of restoration, redemption?
And we've certainly seen a ripple effect of, I mean, my in-laws are here today. And I remember sitting at their kitchen table and puking on them. And yet that was the catalyst for their journey to take a different turn with God. And I was surrounded by a group of men, the Bulls, who convinced me that living in the light was worth it, and showed me grace with skin on it when I still really didn't quite believe that God's scandalous grace was real. I couldn't believe that till I saw it from people, and I saw it from a lot of people, a lot of whom have been at the services this weekend, just to say, we love you, we're for you, we're praying for you. We want to see the ripple effect of God's healing reaching through you in other people's lives.
Yeah, and for me, God just put, it was a lonely journey at times, but over time, and as I prayed for someone who I could share these and walk this with, and God did give me some, and he gave me more abundantly beyond over the years. And I look back on my journals and I just can't believe, oh, I forgot she showed up, or they sent us that email. And we couldn't have done this without other people in our lives too.
Yeah. So if you, for individuals, single, married, who are dealing with sexual brokenness, what would you say to them? If you had to just tell them 1 or 2 words, what would it be?
Well, I would say that there's hope. That's definitely the biggest thing that we hope our story can offer, is hope that there can be healing. I caution that not every story turns out in a restored marriage like ours, but I guarantee you that everyone can have a restored heart.
Amen.
And that's what God's after in this.
Yeah.
He's after your own heart. As a woman or man that's been hurt by betrayal or sin, he wants you to seek him.
Yeah, for me, I think of the hundreds of church services I was in, and felt conviction and knew I had a secret and wanted so desperately healing without exposure, and just that fear of humility that people here probably have. They have their secrets, they have their lock boxes of things that have happened a long time ago that you said, I will never think about that, I'll never tell that to anybody, I'm going to take that to the grave. And I just would invite you to consider that that's been poisoning your heart as it poisoned mine for years, and that the freedom and joy and restoration that comes from an unlocked box, from a free heart living in the light, I wouldn't trade anything for it. And I have to remind myself all the time. I have to say, my heart wants freedom more than my flesh wants to stay hidden. Because things still happen. I still have to bring things into the light, and it's that little fear of humility that pops up. And so I want to give people courage. Courage to have conversations that you thought you would never have. Courage to consider that it's not been serving you well. The lockbox has not been serving you well. It's been poisoning you. And to trust God with that his grace is enough. Even if it's not a restored relationship, it's a restored heart for you.
Yeah. Well, Jason and Amber, thank you all so much for sharing your story this weekend. Let's just give God. So here are the rest of your notes. How do we guard and protect ourselves from falling into sexual sin? Number one, realize that no one is out of reach of sexual sin. No one is out of reach. Care how strong you think you are, no one is out of reach. I wish I had time to go delve into this even more. Cultivate my daily commitment to Jesus. It's a daily commitment to Jesus that you and I have to develop. It's not just a one, come Sunday, go home. It is a daily time alone with him. Build intimacy with your spouse. Intimacy is not sex. Intimacy is closeness with your spouse. Or if you're not married, with someone who's a godly individual who will walk with you and run this race with you. But if you're married, intimacy is closeness. It is, how's your day? Like looking the person in the eye, recognizing that you're my best friend. And so, and we must not confuse intimacy with sex. The fourth thing, develop accountability with your spouse. One of the things I appreciate about Jason and Amber is that Jason did not wait until Amber, did not wait until she asked. He actually gave it. To build that accountability, to say, this is where I've been, this is what I've done, this is who I am, as opposed to waiting until Amber found out about it in a different way. And then anticipate temptation and avoid it.